Welcome, I'm Bob Burke, Chair of the Libertarian Party, Pierce St. Croix. Today is November 21st, 2013, and as of 8:06 a.m. this morning, I will be held in contempt of court in Menominee, Michigan. This stems from, of all things, 2 tickets I received on my sailboat August 3rd of this year. We had spent a night anchored off of Chamber Island in Green Bay with my wife, 2 daughters, and 2 of their friends. Right here. It's a great place. You really should do it. Their friends saw the Milky Way for the first time. It was pretty cool. I had been fighting with engine problems this year, and the next morning my engine would not start. We'd planned on heading about 19 miles south to Menominee at the end of the day anyway for a festival, and planned to arrive early enough to get a first-come, first-served spot on the marina wall. That morning the engine wouldn't start, and so being a sailboat, we hauled up the canvas. Of course, without wind that day, we arrived 7 hours later. It was a very warm, hot day, but we anchored late in the afternoon outside of the now full marina. I loaded the 4 girls into my dinghy and headed for shore to provide them some relief when the police boat for the event had approached. The sideboards of my dinghy had fallen off on a prior trip due to heavy waves, and while I had replaced the sticker registration, which was on my sailboat still, I had not the boards. During the exchange, I explained to the officer that I had no engine and low battery due to anchoring the night before. I asked the officer if the location for my anchoring was okay, and the officer told me that it was fine, and so I returned to the boat for the sticker's registration and a makeshift sign to adhere it to. But I was unticketed. After I got the girls and the party on shore, I pulled my dinghy out of the water completely, tied it off to a bush as most boaters do, and proceeded to the fair where I spent a couple $100. You know, around 7:30 I received a call from my daughter. She let me know that the waves had gone from about 1 foot to 5 or 6, and the dinghy which we rowed to shore was now completely filled with water, and the registration, the impromptu registration, had floated off. We returned to the dinghy near dusk, and I determined that since the marina and festival lights fully lit my boat, and the danger of anyone boarding the boat in 6-foot waves far exceeded the value of turning on an anchor light, I decided that we should stay on shore until after the fireworks and all approaching boats had passed. This made additional sense since the police boat was patrolling the area, and I felt pretty sure that they were aware it was there and would alert anyone that might have a problem. Around 10 or 10:30, after all the boats in the marina had left, I returned to the boat and climbed aboard. It was not a safe situation, but it was the one place we had to sleep. The waves had not abated as I'd hoped. As everyone was down below, a spotlight then began shining into the boat, and I went on deck to see what was up. The officer, and as I found out later, a cadet, recent graduate cadet, had returned in their police boat. The officer's first words to me were that I had abandoned my boat. At that moment, and as exhausted as I was for the day, I knew that he did not care about my boat or my crew. So I provided my registration, and I waited for the ticket to come for my anchor light. That night I received 2 tickets. One for the anchor light, which for the record was going to go out somewhere during the night, as I explained to the officer, as we hadn't charged our batteries, and one for my boat's registration. You see, the numbers on my hull didn't match the state digits that were usually on your registration. You see, my boat had previously been in a charter fleet, and as such was registered with the U.S. Coast Guard. The numbers, therefore, were a set of digits rather than the 2 letters and 4 digits of most state registrations. See, when I bought it, I put it in the marina in Sturgeon Bay, I noticed that every other boat in the marina had stickers on the bow, and the numbers on the hull of my boat, well, they didn't match like everybody's else, but I decided that I should put the numbers on the sticker on the side of my boat. About a week before the court date, I received a call from the prosecutor. And the prosecutor asked if I could switch the date because it conflicted with the recent cadet graduate's day job, which apparently was serving as some sort of safety officer at the high school. The reason for the call, however, was a lie. This guy would be ashamed of the ruse that he created. What followed was a plea offer. The anchor light would be given as a guilty plea, and he would drop the registration. Now, as I progress in the story, I want you to understand that is what I was offered. See, the prosecutor knew at best the case would be a couple $100, $300 or $400 in fines, compared to the thousands of dollars in time to the officer, the cadet, the prosecutor, and the judge. Now, I was already headed back over to that side of the state to pull the sails off and put my boat away for the year, and so I hoped that the judge would see that I had acted for the greatest overall safety of all that I possibly could. Now, with the clarity that only comes with time, I really try to consider the testimony as I piece it together after the entire event and after the court date. The police officer indicated that the fireworks people had indeed expressed concern with my boat's location, and having not returned prior to the fireworks, he most likely spent the night worried and probably irritated. Riding a boat in 5-foot waves, ladies and gentlemen, is very exhausting being on a boat in heavy waves. This, friends, completely explains his "you abandon your boat" moment. You know what? This is one of those problems with these victimless crimes. The light wasn't the problem. He was tired from standing in 5-foot waves for 3 hours, something that he told the judge was not true when I specifically asked the question. I can't begin to express how intellectually dishonest this was. The judge in the end fined me for the anchor light and the court costs of the anchor light, despite my defense that I had acted with the best safety for all parties, and the obvious fact that the anchor light did not pose or add to the public safety. I lost that one. Fine. The light wasn't on. I found out in court, however, from the officer that the problem with the registration was that the Coast Guard was where I had registered that boat. But according to law, I wasn't actually required to have any hull numbers on my boat. In fact, I was in overcompliance, if you will. To that end, the judge dismissed the registration charge, but charged me a $110 court cost. This court fee is tantamount to extortion. It should not cost people to prove and be found innocent. My favorite part of the whole court case, by the way, was when the judge told me that I could have called the police department to let them know because, quote, they could have hung a flashlight from the bow or gone on board and turned the lights on for me. Listen, I don't know if you've ever been in 6-foot waves, 5-foot waves. Nobody needed to approach that boat. Everybody could see it. And as for the advice, well, the officer could have told me that on August 3rd. But now we really all know that this wasn't really about the light. This was about people who are fallible, being tired and angry because they couldn't deliver to other individuals what they wanted. There's a very real victim here. There really is. The victim is me, and it's a victim of this court, and it's a victim that every one of us faces every time we are charged with a victimless crime. I'm not going to pay this. I really do feel bad. I don't want to be a criminal. I'm a good person. I try really hard to make sure that I do the right thing. But friends, this is an example of how out of control our police are. And unfortunately, I think our police are very important. But this divides me from them, and this divides you from them. I see a better America than this.